Yes. So again, just to recap what we're doing here, I think you probably all know, but just to make sure. So we are collaboratively building an open standard and an open API for harmonized Swiss parliamentary data. And we want to do this for more transparency, for more innovation, but also for more participation in Swiss politics. Here you can see, also if you've been part of the last meetings, you've already seen this visualization, but this is basically all the work packages we are working on. We are currently focused on, and especially Christian, on the data import, so getting the data, the unstandardized, the unharmonized data from the different cantons and cities and entities, and then putting making these accessible through an API in the next step. That will be work package 2. We will be working on the minimal GUI, so graphical user interface. We start that work soon. And basically overarching all of this is kind of the endeavor of standardization, harmonization at the core, so to say. So kind of with the API as a kind of like a quick fix of making the data accessible as fast as possible, but also kind of like the standardization process to kind of solve the problem also at the root, so to say. Yes, and also as kind of work package 5, we kind of see this as an integral part of the project to not only supply and provide this API, but also already have a long-term plan on how to sustainably fund or sustainably run this API. That it's not only that it's basically just gonna be deprecated or soon after the funding or first funding runs out, but we want to kind of also come up with a long-term plan to run this API, but also to govern this API. So who also as an institutional body runs it, under which circumstances, with which values, etc., etc. And for us, these two questions of, okay, how do we fund it and how do we run it and how do we govern it, they are very much intertwined. So we're also going at these two questions together. Yes, so maybe as a quick recap, again, you can see like the work packages here, just visualized again on the timeline. We are, again, and Christian is going to talk about this in a second, working on the data import. We've also been very active on the standardization part, and again, are kicking off the governance business model track, at this moment, basically. And coming up next is also, again, the work on the REST API and the GUI. Yes, and for a quick update on the Fachgruppenantrag with ETH, I'm going to hand it over to Christian.
Okay, thank you. I guess I'm going to switch to my slides. Maybe can Igor just check if there are new incoming people, since I haven't figured out how I can provide the permission to admit to someone else. Probably it's about our instance.
Yeah, maybe you want to share, the slides.
Yeah, let's do that. But
cool.
Hopefully those in the background will be admitted. So it's quite annoying if they're joining, are still waiting. Yeah, well, this is, I guess, the good news. Since what happened last time, we have handed in the application for a Fachgruppe, Parlamentsdaten and politische Rechte, and this application has now been approved by the ETH board. There has been a first kickoff between me and Michael Lucken, who are leading this group, and ETH, where we have a little bit talked about what are the next steps. I guess one of the main work is still ahead of us. So we now have a group, but This group has still to be formalized, so there will be an administrative setup for all participants, and we will communicate about the new group. As I heard, ETH wants to also somehow a little bit use this group as showcase how a group is formed and how work is done in ETH. So we will have help there. And there will be now a planning of the kickoff coming up in the next weeks. Those who are interested or already have signed up will hear from us. Those who are not yet in the group or still interested, you still can join. I guess there will also still be a call for those who haven't maybe yet heard about this group. I think this will be public, or a call will be still published on the ECH page. Yeah, I guess we're still looking for someone from the Romandie, because there we haven't yet good coverage. We are also trying to improve that till the really start of the group. Then, yeah, much work really has been in the data import in the last 2 months. And here I can say at least that we now have the crawlers ready in a first version for, okay, it works. Sorry. We have a first version for the data of the National Council, Council of States, and as a demo, so we also are open for countries. I have also implemented Liechtenstein, which has a small parliament, more on the level. Actually, it's a national parliament, but actually, from the size, it's more a small canton, right? Then for the cantons, I have implemented or migrated all the stuff from Politmonitor, except here I have listed 2 free cantons. One is quite unfortunate, that Schaffhausen. I have done this before Christmas, and it worked totally fine. Could import all the stuff, and somewhere now in between New Year and this January, they have somehow updated their website, so the import has broken, and I still have to figure out how to go on forward with this. I guess one opportunity now is to really get in touch with the people from the parliament and maybe ask them about, is there a way to get the data maybe more directly, or getting back the endpoint which has now been broken or something like that. Also about Canton Valleys, this is working quite well for new staff, but they have somehow in their history, they have, I guess, migrated the system, but they haven't migrated the data. And so when it's about stuff before 2010, it's really a mess. There are a lot of duplicates, affairs. Sometimes it's just a document. This is, well, still a mess. I have data for new stuff. I have data for old stuff, but there it's not really when you look at the data, it's not really clean data. There still have to go up to do more there. And also for Glarus, they somehow have, well, very restrictive. They also have changed the way how I could import data from before, where now as soon as I try to call this query, I will be excluded from the website, or my IP will be blocked for some hours. And I already had a chance to talk to them and maybe to ask for if they can whitelist our server, but there's still work to do there. And I also have started to work on the cities, so we now have the imports done for Zurich, Bern, St. Gallen, and then some smaller cities listed here. Well, there's a lot to talk about data import. Maybe today I have 2 things maybe to point out. One thing is also because for some this is interesting, the voting data in the parliaments. Actually, I have also now this improved because in PolitMonitor this wasn't an aspect we have. We had some data imported, but not of all. Now I have improved that for all, or not all, but many other cantons, as you can see here. Yeah, and this is also a little bit. Yeah, now you're probably getting this 80%, 20% rules. I mean, for example, when I look at the Canton Solothurn, which is about to switch their system soon, as I heard or as they have announced, you find the data as such. So, for example, you see here the voting data in such a table, which is PDF, and then you see the related affair or the object of the voting in a protocol, which is also PDF. And I mean, it's not impossible to connect those or extract those data, but actually it's quite an effort, which isn't this going into perfection. So maybe we'll leave this out for the moment and focus on other stuff. Then maybe also for today, I have a little bit this event topics. I think this is what I little bit are. Well, I think this is one of the most challenging entity to grasp. I'm very welcome if there are any inputs about how to solve this perfectly. Just as I mean, here for example, we have an affair from Lucerne, and I think this is, from my understanding, quite clear. So you have an affair and you have the events, you see the actors, you see a date, you have some documents or to the event, and this makes it clear, right? But then there, or for example, or Zurich, I think this is also quite comprehensive that you can see here the steps, and you have the documents, you have a standard or more or less standardized title for the event. And you have then, but also they have then started to somehow extend this event. So you not only have the title, but you also now have a description, you have a link to the video. But this is also quite easy to grasp. Then there is this mixture of, sometimes like on the federal level, you have this mixture of, you have in events, and then you have sometimes some stuff like when has the affair started or have been put in here in the case of the Federal Council. It's more an attribute in the affair. Then for some cantons, actually they have affairs, and then the events are documents, right? So it's in the title of the document you see, okay, now there is something has happened. And then we have a mixture sometimes. So you have, for example, Aargau, you have affair attributes where they have standardized some stuff. Then you have documents, which also is some kind of clue, which is not available here, about what happened during the affair. And then sometimes you have here decisions. And then in even weirder cases, like for example, Opficon, they create like in the system affair for each event. Then you have to actually not even they have the same number. You just have to find out by the title or somehow by the title that this belongs together. Actually, it's one. Well, in my understanding, is one affair, right? Or then you have, like in Neuchâtel, you have information more as a free text here, which you have, can extract, maybe a little bit standardized, like okay, it has been treated by the state. Maybe you can get this information, but sometimes you just have a free text, or like Nidwalden, same here. They just have a description. They call it, or put in the events in here. Then you have more like Qualle, you have more they are session based. So actually each event actually is an agenda item. I mean, you can work with that, but it's also different. And like Ticino, they then have this kind of, okay, at this date, the affair got this state. So you have a mixture between the state and also then documents. When there is an answer from the government, you can understand now, okay, there's an answer from there. And then, for example, then okay, that's Bern. They then have also this is more agenda, Traktanten driven. And so you have an affair, and then you have Traktanten, and each Traktanten can have different entities. So yeah, this is I think to find a common data model is quite hard. I'm not yet happy what we I'm not happy with the current status. Probably I cannot solve this for the open parl data. This is more a question than for the Fachgruppe ECH. Just to inform you what I have done now because more we have migrated this crawlers from PolitMonitor. In PolitMonitor we had a schema or a data model where we try to map this information as shown before to some standardized events. Because we have had these events ready from PolitMonitor, I have included them with the field event title harmonized. Actually, I know this is an interpretation, and you probably want the original information. So this is what I try to achieve. So I try to provide this information as good as possible. It's not yet everywhere done. This is something I still have to go on to provide this information where this information comes from, and then also the original event, and then if possible, provide you the harmonized version of this event. There's also what I haven't yet done is like in PolitMonitor, we have tried to provide information for each event to an actor, which is more on an aggregated level. Because otherwise, it's the question: do you say each parliament has actually we have a group for that, so each parliament has an identifier in open parl data, but somehow it will be difficult to then at the end, if you think about the search, how can you find interpellation which have been answered by the government? Then you would have to search for all actors which are government or so on. I don't know if it's clear. We have tried to harmonize those kind of actors. I think in the end it would be great to have those really as the government of this canton, government of this city, parliament of this city, and so instead of an abstract. And maybe then to say, okay, these are now governments and these are now parliaments. I haven't done that yet. It's quite of work. Sometimes the information is also not available in the sense it's for each parliament. It's clear if something is if done here, then okay, this is the parliament of Nidwalden, which is here just a free text, and then I will have to assume, okay, this is now the group, the parliament of Nidwalden, and have to connect that. So this means work for me on the side that I have to match this information first, and haven't done that yet. But this is what I'm trying to do, and also. We haven't done that in PolitMonitor, but this is something I like to achieve for open parl data, where we try then to link this data to the session. We have now also to have information about the session, so there is or meetings. So the idea is that you can see what happened during the meetings. You then have the affairs and the events. Yeah. And then also what I think what we have done here for the easiness of the, let's say it here. No, what's a good example? The one here. Um, Here's the possibility to say, okay, you would link the document to each event. You would link the document to each event, but for easiness, we now have we just all take all the documents and link it to the affair. So you will get those documents not related to the event, but just to the affair. I think for the moment this works, but still, of course, if you find a solution there, it would be actually more accurate. But I think I mean, here documents are, this is correct. Then in this case here, you would have all the documents related to affair as well, but maybe not related to the, I don't know, decision. Yeah. Well, so there's still work to do on this side, and this is also what's coming up also for the next months. So we will still have to finish the migration of the crawls for all cantons and cities. What we haven't yet done, because the server infrastructure wasn't yet ready until actually yesterday, that we will set up a day run for crawling. Actually, as someone already have found out, it takes quite a long time. From my experience of polymeter, it really can take about 10, 12 hours to run those crawlings. This is also something I'm very curious to see how it works on the server. Now using a Postgres database, hopefully also we can improve the prioritization of that. With MySQL, we always had the problems that if you have several parallel import steps writing on the same table, you often get these locks on the table. So there was a problem there. I'm very curious to see how this works out now with Postgres and the new environment. Also, what's going on is the monitoring and the health of imports. Actually, we have already idea that there's a table where you can see, okay, this is a daily run. It started from then and then. It has collected this amount of affairs, this amount of person, and so on. So we can have also visualization of that. And of course, then it starts to have this kind of, okay, there is an error there, there's an error there. What are we going to do that? This is also something I like to improve. And at the end, I can't get shown much, but the idea is then to load this daily crawling into a pool where then the API and the GUI will get the data. This I still have to, well, some stuff is already done, but this still has to be optimized and also tested in the daily setup. Another thing which I like to do, I haven't yet done, is to connect the persons to the smart vote person identifier. I have been talking to people from smart vote. They have been able to provide me access to their APIs, and I will try to connect there, because I think they have, or at least what their claims, it's not perfect, but they have probably the most comprehensive database about politicians in Switzerland, and try to link those information from the parliaments, the official ones, to the ones from SmartVote, or at least try if this is actually possible, and what the quality is when, I don't know, looking up by name and canton, city, or something like that. This is ongoing. And as I cannot yet tell you more about the API and GUI. Probably this is more what you are waiting for, because then it becomes more interesting for you. Actually, this work has postponed, or let's say we have been ambitious to do that before. By the timetable, we haven't actually. We're still in the time. The idea is more to maybe do it a little bit later, like in starting more in March, because of simply of available resources for those who are going to implement that. And we still have work to do as for the crawlers. It's not a matter of budget, more about time, but I think still fine. Yeah, that's a little bit update about me. I don't know. Do you want to continue, Florin?
Yes, maybe also if there's questions so far.
Yeah, indeed.
We can also take some time, but we also obviously have time later for questions. If you could keep sharing your screen, that would be great.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's fine. Yes, and also again, like if you have questions, please feel free to post them in the chat, but also speak up. And just generally, again, the reminder. So from last meeting, if you have any requirements, and especially like Christian said, we are about to start, or we start the work on the API and the GUI in a month's time. So now is really the time to add your requirements to the project. You can do that via the link or also the QR code in the presentation. We've already added some as like from the last couple of participation meetings that were already mentioned. But again, if you have other points, inputs, anything, feel free to drop it there. We will then also take them into consideration, prioritize, and move forward. If there's no question currently, I think we'll move on to the next slide.
Yeah, sorry.
All good. All good. I'm going to talk a bit about the governance and sustainability now. Again, as mentioned in the beginning, this is really also a core part of the project because, as you might know, for a lot of open source or open data projects, they run exactly until the point they have their kind of initial funding and then they kind of dry out. And this is really something we want to tackle head first. So it is, again, an integral part of the project to think about governance, to think about sustainability. And we've kind of formulated that also within the application. So we define the governance for our API and look for a suitable business or sustainability model to be able to operate the solution as openly as possible, but also sustainably. So that's basically two parts that are intertwined. So the first part is kind of to have a governance based on democratic principles that enable the use and the operation of this API in the public interest. And the other one is to have kind of like a functioning business model that ensures a sustainable and public interest and not-for-profit oriented funding of this API. Next slide, please. When we talk about the governance principles, and this is also these are pointers also from the initial application, so it's really a draft, and we haven't put a lot more thought into it. But just to give you a broad idea of what we're talking about, when we talk about governance and governance principles, it's first and foremost like the openness of the data, but also the openness of software. So open source software, everything that's been developed or is being developed in this year, but also later, should be provided as open source. All the data should be provided as open data. I can talk maybe about the limitations also when we're talking about the business model. Or there's potential, there's an idea maybe to also limit it, so to have kind of like a freemium model to kind of like provide the raw data, so to say, for free, openly, but maybe there's kind of some like additional services or some additional data computations or whatever indices that we will provide as a paid service. That could be an idea that I think is worth discussing. Yeah, I mean, ethics, kind of self-explanatory. The API should be run reliable, so that it can be integrated also into other services. Also can think about service level agreements at that point. Transparency, I think that's very much what we're doing right now. So all the decisions, everything around the API, all the development should be done in the open, should be done transparently, also to kind of improve and build trust. Participation, yes. So I think it should be, the governance should be participatory. So the question is kind of, okay, then who is that? Who has to be involved? How do they decide? How do they come up with decisions? What's the kind of the mechanism there? And then last but definitely not least, sustainability. So in the sense that this should be like an enduring project that is able to exist for as long as it is being used. So again, there also the vision of being able to switch off like one crawler after the other, because the data is being provided in a standardized way through an API by the entities like cantons and cities already. And there just needs to be kind of maybe at some point a layer to bring them all together, or maybe not even. So the goal of this project also is, again, to make ourselves and make it obsolete with this track of standardization, or at least complementary to what is there already. Yes, so if you have ideas there, what do you think, what is important to watch out, look out when designing a governance for this project? Feel free to speak up now, feel free to post a comment, but also can also write me an email if you want to be included in these discussions. So the idea there is really to set up a workshop soon, or like in 1 to 2 months, in March probably, where we invite different stakeholders to kind of brainstorm and come up with possible ideas for the governance, or possible structures for governance and principles, but also the business model. So if you have ideas, if you think, feel free to drop me an email, or just also comment on the GitLab. It's really up to you. This is my email. Also, if you have others' ideas or just feedback, just feel free to reach out to me. The next slide, please. Yes, and then very much intertwined with the question of how do we govern this API is also the question of how do we run it sustainably? How do we fund it? There also the hope would be that it gets less and less expensive, right? Also with the standard, because I mean now it as you could as you could hear and see, it takes a load of time to build these crawlers, also then to update it, and again if it breaks. So there also the vision and the hope would be that this that the maintenance of the API gets cheaper and cheaper, since hopefully a lot of cantons will adapt this newly created standard probably from next year on. But until then, we have to kind of find a solution, and can also be a mix of different business models or different revenue streams, so to say, to sustainably fund the work and the maintenance of this API. Yeah, so there are different revenue streams. One I've just mentioned before would be just kind of like a freemium model. So the raw data, or most of the data, or the essential is a it's possible to access this through the open API. But if you want to have access to kind of like indices or other stuff, then this would cost you. What that would be, again, I think this is also something we will discuss during the next couple of months. Again, another revenue stream can still be grants. Like this is also currently the project is currently funded by the Mercator Foundation, so we could also look out for different funders, foundations, but maybe also even private companies who just give us grants apply it for grants. I think this is more kind of like a short-term solution, but or also if we are confident that this will only be necessary for a couple of years, or 1 or 2 years. I think it's possible to kind of go from grant to grant, but I think it's definitely not the most sustainable solution. I think it's still also a possibility that the government or some governmental entities will chime in, will support this. Maybe it can also be something that is funded by different cantons, so they're all chip in, or they're all responsible kind of for their own data and pay accordingly. Also a possibility. Also possibility to kind of run this as a kind of with kind of membership fees. So just people that are willing, or organizations, entities, can be cantons, or can be cantons, but it can also be data users. So data users and data providers kind of just pay a membership fee. You still also have there kind of like the freeloader challenge. So, I mean, you can get the data, or you can get the data for free because it's open data, but maybe there's a way of also think about, them paying out of necessity because they think it's it's a good thing and it's a necessary thing. Yes, and there's many other possibilities. So also, if you have ideas about, okay, what are potential revenue streams for this? Please feel free to write into the chat. Also, feel free to speak up now. I think we already have somebody with a votum, Fabian.
Hi, thank you very much. We are already using the data for quite some time now, right, and working daily with it. And it's not directly a contribution to the topic of revenue streams. It's more, the perspective of a data user. As we are also building a non-commercial project, for us, it will always be kind of difficult to contribute financially, right? It's a bit in the nature of the project. But what we are doing already now is that basically, we're working with the data in the sense of that we manually review it, we enhance it, right? We go deeper in the data structure. And I would welcome it if we could, very explicitly also define this kind of role. You said the problem of freeloading. And I don't know how much of it needs to be, in really in legal terms, but at least there is a clearly defined principle that says, hey, look, at least a social expectation, if it's not, really a binding contract, the social expectation is you contribute to the project if you benefit from it. And this means financially, or, in any other way where I think, it would be more adapted to our project, for example, on databases, and this means this and that, that the expectations are clear. And I'm looking for a nice way to say that there's also a basis on which we can ideally shame people into, contributing, or no, encourage. Now I found the good word. It's not about shaming. But I think you get my point.
Yes, yeah. I think that's a very good point. I mean, obviously, also to make it clear, if I'm talking about funding, this can also be, as you've said, in kind contributions, right? So, I mean, also just thinking out loud here, if every canton would just kind of be in charge for their own data, it would need very little additional effort, right? So yes, so, and I think definitely, as you said, like how can we incentivize people to contribute back the data, that users of the API to contribute back to the project, improve the data, etc., etc. I think that's a very important question for us as well. Michael.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you very much. One thing which probably is a bit difficult right now and early, but definitely would help also with the whole idea is if you have a rough estimate what numbers we are talking about. You said you just started the servers now and so on. I think this might be the easy part. The more difficult part, how much time resources you need to keep the maintenance up so that we have a rough idea if you're talking thousands or millions or just this, I think, will influence then also a bit the ideas how we could go ahead with financing.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. We also, I mean, we have our budget published somewhere, the current budget. But I think it would also, and I think it's also in hours, I guess. So, but I think we could also take that document then and extend it to, okay, what is kind of the, what do we think, what would it cost moving forward? I think that's a great idea. Yeah, thank you. Perfect. So if there's other inputs, please feel free again to shoot me an email or also write in the chat later. But I think for the time being, we'll move on to the next slide. Yes, so we're gonna have a next meeting, and I think that's gonna be a very interesting one. If you remember the timeline, so it's gonna be at the beginning of April, 8th of April. We're gonna hear a lot about the data import, the API. Again, if you have feedback there, feel free to also formulate requirements or just shoot us a message, whatever is easier for you. And another thing I want to raise your attention to is, or bring your attention to is, next slide. The Winter Congress 2025, that's kind of the conference by the Digitale Gesellschaft. Christian and I are going to present the project there. Yes, it would be also cool to see as many of you as possible at the conference. I think it's super cheap as far as, or it's, I would say it's almost free. It's like 20, 30 Swiss francs, something like that, if I remember correctly. The tour, so that's going to take place on, the beginning of March, I think, if I'm not mistaken. It doesn't say the date here, sorry. Yes, would be cool to hang out. Also, if you have, if you want to meet in person, this would be a great opportunity. Also looking forward to that a lot. Thank you, Chris. He just posted of DigiGuess, he just posted the link into the chat. If I'm not mistaken, there was one hand raised, maybe not. But if so, feel free to speak up. Maybe not. Also cool. All right. Then maybe next slide. Yes, again, if you want to contribute to the project, feel free to check out the GitLab. Look what's happening. Again, Christian has been very active on the data import. Also, if you want to replicate that, I think also Christian is happy for your feedback. And again, until then, again, thanks a lot to the Mercator Foundation for making this all possible. And we're very much looking forward to the next public meeting in April, where we're going to show you, I think great progress. Very hopeful. Again, if you have any questions, anything, we still have a couple of minutes. Feel free to raise your hand or just speak. If not, that's it from my side. Thank you very much for being part of this. Samuel, you have a question or input?
Yeah, if I manage to unmute myself, which seems to be the case.
Yes.
Is there a way to, I've understood that you would need people from the western part of Switzerland, French-speaking part, to do some support here. Is there a way to reach out to you to see what would be possible?
Definitely.
Sure. Actually, one thing in the ECH group, there is we haven't yet much people from Romandie, so there it would be great. But also, of course, if you are interested in the project, but also would be great. Yes, it's yeah. To be honest, it's a bit German speaking dominated, unfortunately.
Yes, so feel free to, or you can also, feel free to send me a quick email. I've posted my email address in the chat. Hope you can see it. Posted it again. Just reach out to me. It would be great to hear from you. Yes. Thank you.